Thank you, John. Thank you, cheer coaches, for joining us this morning. I'm Vena Williams, the Director of Fine Arts with TAPS, and today we have Chris Henson here with Express Cheer. He's going to go over the TAPS judges rubrics, the progression charts, and then talk about the numbers of required squad members or stunt groups that are needed to maximize your score sheets. At the end, like John mentioned, we will have a Q&A time to ask Chris specific questions about scoring and the judging. And then some of you may have questions that have to do with logistics of the event and things like that, but today we're going to just focus on the things that we need from Chris with judging. If you have additional questions, you can send those to info@taps.biz. Right now, we do have our dates scheduled in December at the Bell County Expo as listed on the calendar, and that hasn't changed yet, but that's what we're looking forward to. So Chris, thank you for joining us today, and we welcome all our cheer coaches. So just let me know what I need to share and we'll get busy.
All right, thanks, Vena. So, super excited to be here today with all of you. We're trying to streamline the process. I know there's a little bit of confusion when you talk about the rubrics and then you try to cross-reference them with the score sheets and we talk about the different divisions. So just want to create some clarity. I know lots of coaches have reached out to me, and so I've tried to give that. And so I suggested to Vena that maybe we just do an all call, and that would help create some clarity for everyone. So what we're going to do first is we're going to touch on the Spirit Squad division. So if Vena, if you will pop up that score sheet, we're going to talk about that really quickly. And then today's meeting, we're really looking at probably about 30 minutes, and then we'll do Q&A. I don't want to take a ton of your time, and we're hopefully going to create tons of clarity. So if you are specifically competing in the Spirit Squad division, this is your score sheet. And you're going to notice it's different than what would be the traditional score sheet. On traditional score sheet, you've got difficulty, and then you also have your execution. For this score sheet, each of these sections are just worth a total value, and that's pretty consistent across what we consider game day. So Spirit Squad is very, very, very similar to game day events. So when you see, we talk about band chant, and I know there's been tons of questions in regards like, I don't have a band, how do I get music? Or do I have to go purchase music and things of that nature? Super duper simple. iTunes, you can go type in band music, marching band. I can pull up some of the other keywords. There are so many resources out there. You just purchase that track and then you do a quick edit to make sure it's within your time limit. So super simple. And then what's great about that, the way copyright laws work and rights to music is when you purchase that piece of music and you're using it for you, your receipt from iTunes is now your license. Super duper easy. So don't overcomplicate your stuff. So let me tell you some other keywords if you need to go find some band music. Game day, all one word, faves, F-A-V-E-S. There's a ton of tracks that have tons of different colleges and universities playing music. That's one. It's kind of like Now Music. There's like volume 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's tons of volumes. So there's lots and lots of stuff to choose from. And y'all don't get tied to, if you go say look up game day faves and it says classic college fight songs, just because it's that college's fight song doesn't mean you can't use it for your band chant just because they labeled it as fight song. So just think out of the box a little bit. Another great resource is the best of college football fight songs. There's another one called College Road Trip. Once again, multiple volumes of that. Let me think what else there is. Those three are really going to get you tons and tons of choices. Another one, College Basketball Madness fight songs. And then, of course, you can just search by universities, like Virginia the Cavalier. You could search by Mississippi, and there's going to be so many resources that are going to pop up. So if you're needing music for band chant or fight song, that's a quick, easy resource to go find what you need. Purchase that track. Once again, once Apple emails you your receipt, just print that out because now that's your license. So you're good to go. So let's dig into this really quickly. We're not going to spend a ton of time on it. So the biggest thing you need to know about the Spirit Squad division is the only skill that is allowed is jumps. There's no tumbling, there's no stunting, there's no pyramids, there are no baskets. None of those skills are allowed in the Spirit Squad division. Jumps, 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 and jumps should be somewhere in your routine. You're gonna notice on the score sheet under band chant, it talks about jumps. Under crowd leading, it talks about jumps. Under fight song, it talks about jumps. So my suggestion is, at the minimum, in each one of those sections, you should have a jump. Then you know that you're covered. Vena, can you pop up really quickly the quantity chart that I created for jumps and tumbling? So I made a quick, easy chart for you guys because everyone was kind of confused. If you read through the TAP stuff, there's this thing that says 50% plus 1, and that was confusing for a lot of people. So I tried to create some clarity. Remember that if you're in the Spirit Squad division, you're only able to do jumps, but that still works out. So at minimum, if you want to hit your score sheet correctly, I would suggest that you do 50% plus 1. So this chart's super easy, so just read the left. I have 14 athletes, 50% plus 1 would be 8. So 8 kids should be doing those jumps on the floor, okay? And then you can see what we're calling most would be 75% of the kids on the floor. So of course, a team that does more than that's required, so 50% plus 1, which we call majority, is going to be your minimum, right? And then if you do more than that, that should help push your score up. Does that make sense? So Vena, pop back over to, or can we just show those two side by side? While she's doing that, I'll go, whoa, my screen left. There we go. Okay. So you can see those two side by side. So you can kind of determine the number of kids that you have on the floor versus what you need. That chart becomes super easy for you to be able to read. Let's just talk about really briefly some of the things that are in these categories. So for band chant, it says execution of band chant, motion technique, crowd coverage, entertainment value, relevant to crowd participation, and game day excitement. Motion technique, that's pretty self-explanatory. Are your motions in the right spots? Crowd coverage, there are 9 mats used at the TAPS championship. So each mat is 6 feet wide. 9 times 6 is 54. So you have 54 feet that you need to cover. So if you never touch panel 1, panel 9, you have not done an effective job doing crowd coverage. So kind of the idea is that at some point throughout your routine, someone should touch every panel on the floor, 1 through 9, okay? Entertainment value, does it entice the crowd to want to watch, yell along? A band chant is not a band dance, so y'all pay attention to that. A band chant can have dance elements, right? I can have cutesy motions, but I should also be leading the crowd, and we want to have callbacks. So if I yell to the crowd, go big red, I should then yell it once or twice more, so I allow the crowd to also yell it back with me. That's actually a chant. So just take a traditional sideline chant, put it to music, okay? Then skill incorporation, choice of effective crowd leading skills, technique of jumps. So you kind of get a double dip. So look down at visual also, level of changes, ripples, effective incorporation of props, and creative movements. So the incorporation of props also has to do with skill incorporation. So think about this. If I'm yelling go big red and I have a red pom-pom in one hand and a black pom-pom in the other hand, and when I yell go big red, I shoot up the black pom-pom, that's really not effective incorporation of props. That's also not effective crowd leading skills. So we want whatever we're saying to match with whatever we're doing on the floor. So does that make sense? So just kind of think about that when you're going through and you're creating your routines and you're putting them together. And what translates on your sidelines doesn't always translate perfectly into a competition setting. So your fight song that you use traditionally at your school every day may not be super effective. It may not have crowd coverage. You may not have incorporated skills into it. So you may potentially need to revamp what your traditional traditionally doing on your sideline and turn it into competition ready. I know that previously, like when I've gone and I've choreographed and worked with schools, many times I don't use their fight song at all. I just create something from the ground up, and that becomes their competitive fight song that they use for competitions. And then for game day, they still do their traditional fight song when they're cheering at a game. Those two can be mutually exclusive from each other. So don't think that you have to take what's from your school, or take your traditional and make it ready for the TAPS competition. Scooting down to crowd leading, once again, talks about props, use of cheer or chant, crowd leading techniques. Just think about really getting the crowd off of their feet, just like you would on a sideline. So any motions that are up motions are always going to be more effective than down motions. So anything that I'm doing over my head, or if I'm yelling colors, I'm shooting them up to the top, because those are visually more appealing. So just think about how you're incorporating those. And then once again, it's talking about effective use of game day props. So if we're gonna ask the crowd to do a spell out with us, and we're gonna spell, say, cats, right? And we're yelling CATS, then we probably want to incorporate some signs that also entice the crowd to yell with this. Y'all think about it like this, because a lot of you are teachers and you work in schools. You have different people learn differently. Some people are visual, some people are auditory. You want to hit all the senses of every single person that's sitting in the crowd. So someone might not clue in when you're yelling the words, but they will visually see the sign and know that that's their cue to start yelling with you. So think about using all the senses. That also has to do with visuals. If you're going to shoot signs out in front of you, those signs aren't very effective if they're in the back of the routine and the kids standing in front of this, and you have kids standing in front of the sign. So if you're going to, for say visual purposes, you want to use signs and those signs start in the back, clearly those signs would need to go up to the top. Or if they are going to go out, then you would want to have the kids in front of them have a level change. So once again, using our props effectively and making sure that we are leading the crowd. And then we'll scoot down to the fight song. Fight song is also very similar to the band chant in the sense that it's to music. So you can see that almost verbatim, all of the words are exactly the same. Okay, you just want those pieces to feel distinctly different. You can have continuity between your pieces, right? So if you want to have a theme where I know that we're yelling like "we are cats" or "let's go cats," we can do variations of that throughout our routines, and we can create some kind of continuity. So there's kind of a theme there. And then the last thing that's on that score sheet is overall impression. So overall execution, creativity, practicality, coordination between spirit group, and then the overall appeal. And you're like, what does coordination between spirit group means? That means how effectively did the team work on the floor together to rally the crowd and get them off of their feet, right? So that is kind of your spirit squad in a nutshell. Don't make it harder than it has to be. This is just good, clean, effective crowd leading. And you want to think, if I'm asking the crowd to spell something with me, I probably want a beat in between. So if we're going to spell cats, I don't want to go C-A-T-S. I don't want to do a 1, 2, 3, 4. I want to do a C-A-T-S. That would be my 1, 3, 5, and 7. We want to give them time to clue in on what's going on. So it doesn't talk about pace on here, but I'm telling you that's an implied understanding that when we're doing crowd leading and it says effective crowd leading skills, that has to do with your pace also. Can I pick up what you're doing? Okay, let's go ahead. So we'll leave Spirit Squad there. I'm gonna remind you why Vena, if she's gonna switch over to, let's switch over to, we can keep this quantity chart up, and then let's add a progression for your tumbling and jumps that would match that. So now we're moving into what TAPS likes to refer to as our traditional score sheet. And so now you're going to really see how these are going to tie together. So when we're talking about tumbling, and you can see over there the number of athletes that are on the floor. So let's use the number 11. So TAPS says 50% plus 1 puts you in the bottom range. Okay, so if I have 11 athletes and 6 of them all do a front walkover, then I get into the range automatically for difficulty of a 2.1, right? 11 people did it, I automatically get that score no matter how horrible it looks. It could be atrocious. I'm gonna get my difficulty score though. Remember, there's another component. Can you pop up the score sheet next to this also, so we can have all three on there together? Is that too crazy? All right, cool. Coming back. That looks fine for right now. So you're gonna have to cross-reference these three sheets against each other when you're creating your routine. So there's a little extra work here, which is why most people hire choreographers to come in to help them, because it can be kind of tedious to put all the pieces together. I'm gonna let her get that up really quickly. So this is tumbling jumps. That looks great. That'll work for me. And then can you change the quantity sheet back to the tumbling and jump quantity sheet? That way we don't have confusion. Perfection. Okay, so let's just talk about intermediate for a second. We'll talk about intermediate. We're talking about 11 athletes are on your team. So 50% plus 1 would be 6 athletes. That's the minimum number of people that have to do the skill in whatever box you choose, okay? So if I'm choosing intermediate, I'm gonna make mine bigger so I can read it. If I'm choosing intermediate, then I need 11 kids to do one of those skills, a front walkover or a back walkover, okay? Then you're gonna notice when I go over to my score sheet and we're talking about tumbling, intermediate, I automatically will get in that 2.1 range for difficulty, okay? But then your execution is up to 5 points. So if 11 kids executed that skill perfectly, then I'm going to get a 2.1 plus a 5. So my total score would be 7.1. Right? Now let's pretend that 11 kids did it and it was not executed very well. So maybe I'm only going to get 2.5 points for my execution. So 2.5 plus 2.1 gives me a 4.6. Okay, so you can see how execution is going to play into this. What I love about the TAP score sheet is it is promoting participation in your school, because these are not super duper hard skills to get. It's also still valuing the sense that we want to have a competitive event. So both of those are being married here. Okay, so I'm going to skip back over once again, and let's say I have a team of 11, you have a team of 11. You did 6 of those front walkovers. I did 8 of those front walkovers. So I actually did most, or let's go crazy. I did all 11. You only did the minimum. I did the maximum of everything that was required, and I performed it really well. So now the more kids you have do it starts to move you up in your range. So 6 kids can get you in that 2-point range, that 2.1 range. 7 kids, 8 kids, 9 kids, 10 kids, 11 kids start moving you up, okay? So when you start hitting the majority, most, and then all is what's gonna move your score up. But remember, you need to balance that with your execution. So let's pretend that I did all 11 of my kids on my team performed that front walkover or back walkover. So I'm gonna be closer to that 3-point range, but they were horrible. They did not perform them very well. So I get a 3 because I did the hardest thing and everyone did it, but then I only got a 2.5 for execution. So you do that math, 3 plus 2.5 would be a 5.5. You chose to only do 6, right? And you performed it perfectly, and you got a 2.1 plus a 5. So you got a 7.1. So you beat me. Even though I had more kids do it, you beat me because you executed it better. So TAPS, once again, is valuing participation, and this allows you some flexibility on your team that maybe you might have a kid who's not excessively skilled. They don't have tons of tumbling, or they don't have beautiful jumps, but that kid might be an incredible crowd leader, and she might be the person you need to back spot. So there's still a place for them on the team. Does that make sense? So same idea. What is that?
I just have a quick question.
Sure.
About tumbling. So in the 2.1 to 3-point range, I'm just curious of like I know you talk about decimals and like 2.8. What is the difference in distinction? Broken down even further, thinking like by decimal point.
There's not a more breakdown. It leaves it at the discretion of the judge. That's why there's a range that exists. Yeah.
Perfect.
If we tried to quantify every single one of those, it would make the job of the judges literally impossible, and we would never get through the event that day.
Right. So like a front walkover and a back walkover potentially could score you the same amount of points, just dependent on the judges.
Absolutely, as long as they're executed perfectly. And to her point, and let's just talk about this, you can also, let's just say, if the majority of my kids, the majority of my kids did a back walkover or a front walkover, I'm automatically in that 2.1 to 3-point range. You can also still have other kids throw a round off back handspring or a standing back handspring or do forward rolls. Wherever your majority is, though, is where your point value is going to start. So let's just also pretend that we're talking about the number 11. I have 11 athletes, 6 of them do a front walkover, and they do it perfectly. Okay, follow me. So we're closer, we're in that 2.1 range, plus we get all of our points for execution. So we're at that 7.1. And then I randomly decide that I'm going to have a kid throw a round off back handspring, and it is not good at all. That's going to lower my execution score. Does that make sense? Also, if we go to the other side of that and we go to basic and I say, all right, I'm going to have everyone do a round off, we automatically are already in that intermediate, like I did the majority. So we're still going to be in that 2.1 to 3.1 range. Okay. But now you decided you wanted the whole squad to do a cartwheel or round off, and they don't execute it great. Your difficulty score does not change, but your execution score could go down because you're now adding more kids doing a skill. So you have to start to balance skill set versus like the difficulty versus execution versus choreography, right? Visually, I might have a section in there that would be incredible to have the whole team do a forward roll, and then I'm having the majority of my kids do another skill, and as long as it's all executed perfectly, then we're not gonna be messing with your execution score as you go through it. So just be really smart about where you put your skills and how you have kids do it. When I go in to coach or I choreograph, the first thing I say to the kids is, today we're gonna use whatever you're best at to put on the floor, and you're going to help me collect points. Every single one of you brings value to this team, and we're going to use you for your strengths. If you position yourself like that with your kids, when you walk in, or your choreographer positions themselves with the kids, they're going to understand that each of them brings something to the table. So I hope that makes sense. Okay. Then let's talk about jumps really quickly. Jumps is a pretty hard one. For you to max out, you've got to do a triple whip with variety. So you've got to connect 3 jumps, and they need to be different jumps. So you can't do toe touch, toe touch, toe touch, right? That's a triple, but it doesn't give me variety. So you can see if I do a triple whip without variety, I'm in that 3.1 to a 4. Once again, be smart. So maybe I say, you know what, guys, we're horrible. Like the best we can do is a triple whip toe touch. Let's stick with what we're great. We're going to get in that 3.1 to 4 range, depending on how many of us do it. Y'all, so follow me again. I have 11 kids. I'm only going to have 6 of them jump because those 6 kids are incredible jumpers. So that's automatically going to give me the 3.1. And those 6 are so great, they are literally have perfect technique. I'm going to go ahead and collect my 5 points for execution also. So my total score with 6 kids out of 11 jumping is an 8.1, right? The team ahead of me says, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and go for that triple whip with variety. I'm also going to have 6 out of 11. They automatically get a 4.1, but they execute it horribly. Their triple whip variety is not good. So they got a 4.1 automatically for doing the difficult stuff, but then their execution, maybe they only got a 3. So their total value is a 7.1, where your total value was an 8.1. So you don't have to do the hardest thing in the rubric or the difficulty category to outscore another team. Use your kids and their strengths and be smart about how you're choreographing your routine, okay? So I know it's the tendency for a choreographer to come in and the only thing they look at is the most difficult thing, and then they start choreographing to that, or you as a coach say, well, this is how we get the most points. Remember, the TAP score sheet is rewarding execution. We are creating the opportunity for participation while still maintaining the sense of competition and the integrity of the event. So jumps and tumbling, those go hand in hand. And then let's skip down to tosses. So a variety of body positions with no twist. A variety of body positions with no twist would include like a toe touch, a pike open, a pike arch, a ball out, a pretty lady, things of those nature. So there's no twist. Then we go to a variety of body positions with a twist. Y'all read that. It says a variety of body positions with a twist. So that means in essence, I need to throw 2 baskets at some point. Like I might throw an individual basket, right? So I might have someone in the beginning that's, once again, we're using our strengths of our kids. She can throw an incredible toe touch basket. So I only put that one toe touch basket. It's somewhere in my opening. Maybe it's behind my pyramid. And then later, I have some other kids who can't do body positions in the air, but they can twist. So maybe I throw 2 more baskets that are twisting. Now I've check marked all my baskets. So be smart about the way you're doing that. It says variety of body positions with no twist. You could also throw a straight ride basket. Guess what? A straight ride basket is a body position because it's straight. So it by default falls into that category. So if you threw just a straight ride, stand up, hit a touchdown, catch in a cradle, you're going to be in that 0 to a 1 point. So, but y'all think about your value again. If I have, can we, Vena, can we flip over to the building one? So that's what tosses is on that sheet. So we can do quantity for tosses also really quickly. And we'll just stick with our example of 11. So y'all follow me because this gets a little wonky and it gets confusing when you look at your score sheets. When we talk about tosses, that falls under stunts, pyramid, and tosses. We're building now. Majority is whatever you have on the floor divided by 5, which means you get to have a front spot, okay? So if we have 10 to 11 kids, I need to put up 2 stunts, and we're talking about tosses, so I need to have 2 tosses that go in that routine. That doesn't say they have to happen at the same time. They could happen at different places, but 2 tosses have to go. And you can see for the way this breaks down, we talk about 11, also 2 is most when we divide it by 4. So if I have one kid and she throws a toe touch basket, well, we automatically got into that range. And then I have another kid who throws a full basket. You're gonna range somewhere in between that. You're gonna fall in between the 1 and the 2. You're not gonna go all the way to the 2 because you didn't have 2 people do it at the same time, or you didn't have 2 twisting baskets. You're gonna fall into that range. So once again, be smart about how you're using your kids. And when we talk about twisting, one more thing, you need to cross-reference NFHS rules and your ACCA rules to make sure you're doing what you're supposed to. So I could also do a kick full basket. Well, guess what that is? That's a double dip. That is a variety of body positions and a twist. I just check mark 2 boxes at one time. So if I go up and I stand up and I kick and then I twist, check mark for 2 skills done, and I don't have to throw another basket somewhere else. I did it. Does that make sense? There's ways to double dip into your score sheet as well. You may not have kids that throw kick fulls, so you're going to have to get creative with how you go collect those points. And then consider once again your execution. You're going to notice that for tosses, the point value goes down. We're 2 points for your difficulty, right? And then only 3 points for execution. So baskets are not a total make or break on your score sheet. So be safe, be smart with your kids. Don't hurt anybody. We want to create participation opportunities. And then you'll see the last thing on the bottom of that score sheet, overall impression, which is showmanship, crowd appeal, good transitions, formations, flow, creativity, and choreography. So once again, start incorporating. So listen, for me to max out, right? I might take we're talking about 11 kids. I might take my best 6 jumpers, because that's going to put me in the jump category. And I'm going to say, let's do a triple whip, right? So they're going to get that 3.1 to a 4. They're going to have perfect execution. So let's just go on the low end. So I got 3.1 because 6 kids did the triple whip. They performed it perfectly. So I got an 8.1. I have 5 kids left over that are standing on the floor. Oh, guess what? I'm going to have that group throw a basket in the back. Maybe it's going to match my toe touch. So now I just check mark 2 boxes. I got a basket out of the way. I also got my jumps out of the way. So you can start working your kids and using your numbers to help create that routine. And guess what? That's now going to play into my overall impression. So if I have this picture and we go toe touch to the top, right, of a basket, so I'm visually watching up, and as I look down, we're starting jumps, or there's choreography on the floor. That's going to play into your overall impression, showmanship, crowd appeal, etc. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's leave that there for a second, and then Vena, can you pop up the building score sheet and the building progression sheets? All right. So let's just cover this really quickly so we're all on the same page. Once again, wherever you do, the majority of your skills is the box where your point value starts, okay? So we're gonna stick with our example of 11 athletes. We're gonna stick with intermediate. Okay, so let's do stunt progressions. So if we're gonna talk about stunt progressions, and we're talking about 11 kids, I need, for the majority, I need to have 2 stunts in the air, okay? Those 2 stunts have to do the same skills in that box, okay? So let's say we're gonna stick with intermediate. Intermediate is really not that hard to hit on the TAPS progression sheet. So we're talking about a quarter up to extended 2 legs. So y'all, that just means we're starting facing the side, we dip, and as she goes up to an extension, she's on 2 feet. That's not super difficult to do. Or we get to do a half up to an extended 2 legs. Listen, I don't know why you would make yourself work harder and do a half up to 2 legs when you could only do a quarter up. Like, if your kids can't do a half up, do the quarter up. Don't try to push them to the hardest skill. A quick toss to a prep level. That means the flyer starts on the ground, we toss her, we catch her here. That's a quick toss to a prep. Not that hard either. Switch up to prep level. A ball up to prep level. These are all pretty simple stuff. A straddle lift extended. We load that girl and then we dip and she sits in a straddle sit above our heads. These are not hard things to do. I feel confident that you can be able to do some of this stuff. 2 stunts would be able to do that. So let's just say, so you decide which box you're going to go into. So if 2 stunts do that intermediate stunt, we're talking about 11 kids on the floor, you're going to score in that 2.1 to 3 range. So let's say I just go, we're horrible stunters. We can only literally get up 2 stunts and they're going to do this 1 skill. You guys, you're going to score in the low range because you only did 1 thing. So you're going to get a 2.1. Now, they did it perfectly. It was picture perfect textbook. So go ahead and go collect your execution points. So your total for that, right? If you skip over to your score sheet, we did 2 extended straddles. That's the only stunt we ever did the whole routine. We got 2 points for that, or 2.1 for that, and we did it perfectly. We got another 5 points for execution. We got a 7.1 out of 10 points. That's not a horrible score, okay? Let's say that you decide that you think that you can do some more skills in that intermediate box. Well, by all means, have both stunts do those intermediate skills, and now your difficulty value starts moving up, right? A team that does more in the box is going to start collecting more points. They're going to move from that 2.1, they're going to start edging towards that 3. Let's pretend that of those 2 stunts, you can get both of them to one of those skills in the intermediate box. That's awesome. you have one Hoss stunt group that can do all kinds of crazy stuff. Like they could do stuff in the elite box. That's cool. Let them do that in that elite. Let them do that skill that's in that elite box. That's going to help push your score up for difficulty. Does that make sense? And then guess what? You have 11 kids on the floor. You're going to use one stunt group to do that elite. So that's 5 kids. You have 6 kids left over. Hello. Now you're able to do your jump section or add choreography, and that's going to play into your choreography, formation changes, overall impression. You're going to start check marking other boxes as you go through. So not everyone has to do everything all the time together. Once again, using the strengths of the kids. I hope that makes sense in regards to that. So let's just say, once again, just like we talked about the other one, if I check mark at least 2 stunts in that intermediate category, and then I decide I want to do something in the basic, my score doesn't go down because I've already check marked the intermediate box. So I'm already in that 2.1. But remember, when you start doing other skills in other areas, what you can start messing with is your execution. So if they can't do it really well, they can't perform it perfectly, you consider not putting it in there, right? I might use a quarter up to a prep, or I might use thigh stands in my cheer because that's super crowd effective. Those aren't hard skills, but they become very appealing when we get to those other places on the score sheet. So just think about how you're using that. Like I know that I choreograph teams for game day for UIL. I've literally had teams win the state championship, and all they ever did were thigh stands because they did them perfectly. Like you were like, ooh, I want to yell with them. Like they were effective. We were clean when we did them. So use the strengths of your team and go collect your points that way. So you can kind of see that over there on your score sheet. Once again, be smart about how you're doing. Oh, guys, actually, I'm wrong. You're sorry, because I didn't reference that. Your execution for stunts is even higher. So do it perfectly, and you're going to get even more points because that value over there is worth 8 instead of 5 when we go to this score sheet. And then the same idea for pyramid progressions. When we get into those pyramids, you don't have to do everything in those boxes, but remember, you also need to consider your choreography. So maybe I'm doing an advanced twisting variation, or I'm doing an inverted stunt, but in between those skills, so that's in my advanced category, in between those skills, I'm doing something that's in the basic categories that are going to help with the overall picture and my choreography and the feel of the routine. If you have a girl who is an incredible performer as a flyer, and maybe she's not talented in the sense of like flexibility or body positions, but she can perform, you put that girl in the middle in a prep and you give her some motions and you let her sass it out, and then she's the girl that connects to the other people that can do all the skills, but you're highlighting that kid for her strengths, for her ability to perform, and you're going to start collecting points on other sections of your score sheet. That kid's a standout. Use her for what she's there for. Let her perform. So be smart about how you use your kids. And then once again, I'm going to say it because we said it in the other category. Overall impression, that showmanship, crowd appeal, transitions, like very effective for use of your floor and formations. Like having kids move in a prep from panel 3 to panel 6, while these other kids are then tumbling across this direction. You're going to start now collecting points for that overall impression of creativity, choreography. Like, what does it look like? I know that not every school has 9 mats to practice on, so I'm going to say your dimensions again. Your dimensions of your floor are 54 by 42, so 54 wide by 42 feet deep. Each mat is 6 feet wide. Get cones, use your pom-poms, get some painter's tape, mark off some visual areas for your kids so they can practice what it feels like to be in that big of a space, because you want to use the whole floor. Okay. Vena, is there one more score sheet for crowd leading? Let's look at that one really quickly. And good news, you don't have to cross-reference that to any quantity chart. So you just get to live on this score sheet and be done with it. So let me pull that over. if you aren't paying attention to the numbers as you kind of go through these score sheets, this score sheet is worth 37 points. That's over a third of your, oh, I don't know where that went. There we go. That's over a third of your total value of your routine. So once again, we're really promoting the idea of crowd leading. So easy to follow and understand. Some things that I covered when we talked about Spirit Squad, right? The same thing applies here, but you're going to be incorporating signs, palms, flags, megaphones. Once again, you're using your props. So look at that. Crowd leading is not just, do I have incredible motions, but how I use my signs, how I use my flags, how I'm leading the crowd. These don't have to be difficult, overly choreographed routines. This is truly crowd leading, okay? Remember, taps is a 2.5-minute routine when we go to traditional. You got a minute and 30, so 90 seconds that you can have of music. Then the other minute is what would be in your crowd leading. You don't have to go to 2:30, but you can't go past 90 seconds for your music. So if your cheer is only 45 seconds and that 45 seconds highlights every single thing you need those kids to do and they're incredible, get in, get out, get your points. Don't keep making them cheer for a whole minute if you've already done everything you need to do. You can't tack that extra time onto your music. Your max music is 90 seconds. So just be mindful of that. Execution of skills, clean, crowd effective skills, technique stability. So if you're going to be building stunts, this is my opinion, you can do what you want with it. I would not put overly extensive or crazy creative transitional stunts in your crowd leading section. You would not do that on your sideline when you're leading the crowd. So don't do that here. Make it super effective. We're talking about preps, extensions, shoulder sits, shoulder stands, things that are really easy to get in and out of to lead the crowd and that are easy to follow. Guess what? When you do that in this section, you're also collecting stunt points. You're double dipping again, okay? And then dance, strong motions, transitions, level changes, and ripples. So if like say you went to camp this summer and they taught you a dance and all 11 members of your squad are all doing the exact same moves, you are not going to score well in dance because there's no transitions, there's no level changes, there's no ripples. So be smart about how you, once again, use your kids and create that picture. So do you need every single kid on your floor to dance? Nope. Let's say you haven't finished your basket. So maybe you start with 11 kids and for the first 2 8 counts, they're all dancing. It's so fun to watch. And then 5 kids peel off out of that dance and they throw a final basket at the end of your routine. So you've figured out a way to incorporate everyone into dance, right? We're talking about 50% plus 1, again, needs to do this. And then we're double dipping back over to overall impression, showmanship, crowd appeal. We're creating that excitement. We want the routine not to be static. Don't live in 5 or 7 mats. Think the whole picture. Think from diagonals, start in the corner, from front to back, side to side, transitions that go past each other like this. If we do everything that's static and it just stays in the middle, and this one stunt group over here stays in panel 3 the whole time, and this one stays in panel 6, and no one ever transitions across the floor, it's not very creative. There's not a ton of flow. There's not great formations. There's not really any super transitions. So use your kids effectively. I think that's kind of all of it. That covers all of our score sheets and how to effectively use your quantity chart against your progression charts in conjunction with your score sheets. So I think we're going to open up for some questions.
Chris, we did have one question that was talking about skills, and it was, how many skills in the category do you have to do to get into the high range? We talked about just doing one gets you, doing the majority gets you in the range with one skill. So how can you maximize? Is there a number, or is it?
We haven't quantified that specifically through TAPS. If that's something that the members want, I think we could talk about that. Traditionally, I would say that there's anywhere between 3 to 4 stunt skills that are incorporated for you to be able. So let's say if we're talking about intermediate, I would want to do potentially talk about this. Like I could do two skills that are in those intermediate boxes, and then maybe I do 2 skills that are in the advanced box. That's gonna push me. So let's say if I have 11 athletes, that's 2 stunts. So if both of those stunts, move our hands over here. If both of those stunts do if both of these stunts right here do 2 skills in the intermediate category, and then they later also do 2 more skills in the advanced category, then clearly they're going to score somewhere in between intermediate and advanced, because they're both doing it. So you're meeting your quantity chart, but then you're also increasing the difficulty that you're putting on the floor. Be smart though. If they can't do it well, don't mess with your execution points. So just make sure you choreograph that correctly.
I have a question. This is our first time ever competing in TAPS. We've never been allowed, so it's like a huge deal for us to be able to compete. But we just want to make sure we have a couple of questions. So on the 90 to 60 seconds, the 90 seconds can be broken up into 2 different sections. So like 45 seconds, and then go into the crowd leading in the 45 seconds, or crowd leading at the beginning and 90 seconds throughout the. It doesn't really matter, does it?
It does not matter. So let's just say if you want to get super wild and you want to go like, we're going to do music for 15 seconds and then we're going to cheer and then we're going to do 15 seconds of music. I don't know why you would do that, but you actually have the autonomy to do that. There's typically like kind of 3 main ways that people do it. They'll do what you're describing. They'll go section of music, cheer, section of music, or they'll go cheer, all music, the end, or they'll go all music, cheer, the end. But by all means, splice that up however you feel. Just don't, the thing you need to think about is 2.5 minutes is your total, not more than 90 seconds for music, 60 seconds for cheer.
Yeah, and
so
then
you don't have to use every single second. You just can't do more than. There's no
right.
Less than. Yeah.
Okay, so then the other question is on the 90 for the 90 seconds and the 60 seconds. Do you have can we only do like our stunt section during the cheer and then not do a stunt section during music, or we need to do a stunt section during both?
You can, it's up to you how you choreograph. You just need to hit that sometime during the 2.5 minutes.
It doesn't matter if it's with the music or not. We can do the pyramid during it. Okay.
Absolutely.
Chris, are you able to see?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
If we are doing the spirit section first in the traditional division, do the cheerleaders need to start set on the mat, or can they rush the mat?
You can rush the mat.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Chris, we have a couple questions in the chat feature if you can take a look.
Someone asked, oh, Vena already answered that one. Okay, so in a scenario of 17, you only have 2 tosses. So whoever is at Miss Wells, so you're saying you have 17 athletes on your floor, but you only have 2 tosses. Vena, can you pop back up the quantity chart for building? Just so we can all see it, so we're talking the same language and there's not confusion. That's also for me. So here we are, we have that building quantity chart. Let me make it bigger really quickly. So she's saying she has 17 athletes. So for her to max out, she would need to throw three baskets. So to answer your question, you could recycle one of those baskets. Not all 3 have to go at the same time necessarily. So that's how you would go collect your points. It just depends on how you want to, once again, splice it up. I might throw 2 here and then throw another one here. Like use your choreography. Now that becomes a little bit labor intensive. So you have to think about the other side of it. That becomes labor intensive for your judges. If they have to, like, so historically, the way I'm thinking when I'm judging is I'm like, oh, here comes their basket section, or here comes their stunt section. So I see 2 baskets go. I'm like, okay, 2 baskets. So I've now made a note where I've potentially started scoring, and then later you randomly throw another basket, right? That wasn't, then it's gonna make it harder for me to track. That's my job as a judge, it's my responsibility, but just know, just like when you're doing crowd leading, you wanna make it stupid simple for your crowd to follow, create your routine. That the easier it is for the judges to follow, the more likely you're going to collect your points that way also. So don't make it super hard for them to figure out like where you did your skills, how you did your skills, make it make sense. But I think that would that answers your question.
Well, no, actually, if it is just 2 tosses, what would the score be? A 0?
No, it's not a 0 because you did tosses, so you don't get a 0. It depends on what your toss would be. So we start there. So are you throwing a straight ride basket, a toe touch basket?
If both were straight ride to fulls.
Oh, so twisting.
Yes.
Okay, so we're talking about tosses. So you're gonna get into that category of that 1.1 to 2, but you didn't throw 3, so you're gonna fall on the lower end of that 1.1 to 2. You're gonna get in that range. Yes, ma'am. Let me scroll back up. Let's see here. Okay, specifically for tumbling, say the number of athletes is 14. Would we score into the majority range for round off back handsprings, even if they were performed by the same kids? So we're now talking about running tumbling, Nathan. So if you guys will look at the bottom, like I know you haven't seen them, today was the first day, but when you read those quantity charts, I actually break that down and I tell you for your standing skills, they need to happen at the same time. You don't get to collect those. So I think it's coming. Here we go. If you read on the bottom of that sheet, it says, please reference the skill progression chart required for each category. Jumps and standing tumbling, the skills must be synchronized or performed at the same time by the majority of the team to score in your desired range. Running tumbling, the skills can be performed throughout the routine and be accumulated to score within the desired range. So I hope that helps answer that. So if I have 14 kids and we don't all have to go at the same time, I can just keep, that poor girl has to tumble 8 times. Well, she's got to tumble 8 times for me to collect the points. Now, that's gonna hurt you in your overall impression, right? Because me as a judge is gonna be like, oh, that poor girl, here she goes again. So I'm gonna be tracking that girl the whole routine, counting how many times she tumbled, and I'm gonna miss other parts of it. So just know that there's always like you're giving up something to get something else. So decide what makes the most sense for your squad. Shannon, I'm not sure what the first part says. EET question mark. Is it the same as group stunts? I don't know what that means. How does co-ed partner stunting count towards the score?
Right.
It counts this. Okay, there we go. Sorry. It counts this. It counts the same way as the all-girl stunts. So it leaves you guys the flexibility to once again be able to use your kid. So let me just go over and pull it up. Vena, can you pop back up the stunting progression? So we're talking about co-ed, and there are a couple of things that kind of lend themselves to co-ed. So let's talk about quick toss to prep level. That's underneath your intermediate. So it doesn't, y'all, and guess what? Co-ed doesn't mean, we use the word co-ed, but if I have a hoss girl who can throw another girl, those are considered co-ed stunts, but it could be 2 girls doing them together. So we do a quick toss to a prep, that's going to fall in your intermediate. We do a quick toss to an extended, that's going to fall in your elite. So if you have a base who can toss a kid and catch them at the top, that's great. But remember, you also need a certain number of quantity of kids doing that. So you're going to have to play what that looks like from a choreography standpoint, overall appeal, showmanship, etc. If I have a boy on the floor or I have a girl who can toss someone and catch them by themselves, of course I'm going to be overly impressed that all just went down, and that's going to help in another section. So think about how you're going to play with that. But then once again, y'all make sure that you read your rules in regards to, like, do you need an additional spotter? So it can't just be a base throwing a kid and no one else around. You need an additional spotter standing next to them for that to be legal. So make sure that there's so much that y'all have to reference, like one sheet to another, and then double check your rules, and then make sure your grip is right. Like it's a lot. So any other questions?
I have another question.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
I could have missed this, but dismounts from stunts, like if we do a twisting dismount, like a full down, does that add any difficulty anywhere? I didn't see it, but again, I may have missed it.
That is a great question. There are no dismounts. There's no rewards for dismounts from a difficulty standpoint on your score sheet. That was designed specifically TAPS. That's how they wanted that to be, because once again, we want to increase participation by still allowing it to be safe. And so the minute that we put, and some people have asked like, well, this isn't a full range of all the skills, because I can tell you the minute that we write those skills on the sheet, everyone's going to go for the hardest skill, which doesn't always mean that it's the right thing to do for your kids. So you're correct. There's no difficulty points for dismounts. So a pop off or a reload or sponge or a cradle, for all intents and purposes, get you no points. However, they can play into your overall impression and your showmanship. So you don't need them to collect points for difficulty, but you could end up, getting points somewhere else.
All right, thank you. One more question. When they start the routine, so like we're going to start with the spirit section and then move into the music section. When they start, does the music start and run continuously? So as they finish that spirit section, immediately the music needs to start, or can there be? It doesn't stop, right? There's not a pause, or is there?
That's up to you.
Like,
how
I don't
want to
give them a 5-second break, but
I can tell you, like,
count to their time.
I've seen teams do it both ways, and it depends on how you practice. For me personally, I like to hit play on my music, so that way there's no default for as far as like. So I know when that cheer is ending, and I know when to hit play. So that's up to you how you want to design that. And remember, you're responsible for playing your music. So if there's user error, that falls on the coach. For me personally, like a lot of times, if I'm gonna choreograph a routine and I've chosen to split the music, I split it into 2 tracks. I don't have a continuous track because the kids don't always time out correctly. They might have been faster that day or a little bit slower. So I'll also leave myself some leeway. So I would hit play on track 1, and then while they're doing the cheer section, I make sure that track 2 is queued and ready to go. And when that cheer section ends, I'm ready to hit the music again. That's just me personally, how I like to do it, because then we're able to gauge and I can time them in practices, and I know that it'll always be within range. So.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions? Okay, well, it looks like we'll probably.
It looks like there's a couple more in the chat. There's one from Andrea.
Oh, there's more. Sorry, I didn't roll down. Sorry.
Okay. Just scroll down to Andrea Spence. Can you explain jump variety? Does it have to be 3 different jumps, or toe touch, pike, toe touch?
The way that this score sheet is written, it has to be 3 different jumps. So toe touch for hurler pike. If you did toe toe and then another jump, the way that the score sheet reads is that wouldn't be a full variety. That's going to fall back up into the other range, or you're going to fall in between the 2 ranges. Does that make sense? So if you're doing something that's in the gray area, you're going to get scored in the gray area. So if you want a solid 100%, then do exactly what the rubric says. The second that you do something in between, that's where you leave it for judges' interpretation. Brittany, okay, you already answered that. I'm just gonna read this, what it says. Just to confirm, jumps are the only skill allowed in the Spirit Squad division. Yes, Jessica, that's accurate. Jumps are the only thing allowed in Spirit Squad. What's this question about mascot? Let me scroll back up. Does having a mascot play a huge role in the scoring for the Spirit category? It can. It's just like anything else. It can either help your score or it could hurt your score. If that mascot is not an incredible mascot and they don't lead the crowd effectively, I wouldn't put them on the floor. If they are incredible at their job and they can play a role for your team, slide them on. I would be less likely, just for me personally, I'd be less likely to put a mascot on the floor if I was in the traditional category. I'd be more likely to put them on the floor if I was doing the spirit division. That's just me personally. But once again, because you're going to have to adjust to different rules. So there are rules for per ACA and the NFHS that have to do with mascot. So like a mascot in a suit cannot touch a stunt. They could be using signs. So if you're going to put them on your floor during that traditional, that 2.5 where you have the music and all the skills in the building and all that, you're going to need to make sure that they could be utilized the whole time or they become a distraction. So you just have to put some extra emphasis on how you choreograph them into your routine. Let me scroll down and see if anyone else. Okay, yes. Is there more questions and I'm just missing them? Or are we good?
I'm looking for more, but
okay.
I have one more question. Sorry to take your time. I have one question.
Oh,
okay.
Sure.
So I just want to make sure, just because we've never done it before, and I just want to make sure I'm understanding. So say I have, say we have 6, or we do have 16 on our team, and I have 6 fulls. Okay, so but then the other girls that are tumbling too, like we have like multiple people that have tucks and lays and stuff like that. If I have 2 of the other girls do 2 more fulls, as long as we get 8 fulls, we would score for the amount of fulls? Or I'm trying to, okay, I just wanted to make sure. So I could, even if they're doing their tucks and their lays, then that would be fine. We were not going to get points. We're not going to go back down to that rubric. We would still stay in the elite rubric, right?
Yep, you got it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Sorry, I just wanted to clarify.
No, please don't be sorry, guys. There is so much information here that you have to process, try to put together, and then I get it. You're also having to balance like the emotional state of your cheerleaders, and you don't want to tell someone they can't do it, but then you're trying to do quantity charts. Like it's a lot of things. So
yeah, I just want to still allow the ones that have been working on their skills to tumble, but then still remain in everything. So it's kind of a lot.
So Chelsea, in case you missed, so elite skills do not have a minimum number to earn points. Yes, they do have a minimum number. However, there's one exception, and that is running tumbling. Running tumbling can be accumulated or collected throughout the routine. When you go to jumps, standing tumbling, or in any of our other building stuff, there are very distinct synchronized minimums that have to be met. Running tumbling is the only one because the way that routines are created now for composition, overall impression, and things of that nature, you might have 2 kids that tumble in the opening, and then later you have some more kids. Like a lot of teams no longer have a traditional tumbling only section. They've created that throughout the continuity of their routine. So having to tie someone to that is also going to limit their creativity, and we need to be able to have something that starts to separate the teams from each other, and that's the overall creation of the routine and how it feels and what it looks like and how it makes the judges feel. And that's just the reality. This is also an emotional sport. Like, does it entice me and excite me when there's stuff happening on the floor? So if we have 3 back handsprings, team of 12, we don't hit the 50% plus 1, but we would still get some points correct. So 12 on your team, tumbling and jumps. So 12 to 13. So we're talking about, when you say 3 back handsprings, are we talking about standing or running? Both. Okay, so this is a trick question. Y'all notice that there's not a separation between running and standing tumbling on the score sheet. It just says tumbling. Okay, so Chelsea, if it were me, I would have those 3 kids. So 12 kids need to throw round off back handspring in the routine. So, or sorry, 12 kids need to throw 7 round off back handsprings in that routine. So you need to recycle those kids if you want to go get your points. Those kids got to tumble and then tumble again and then tumble again somewhere. So they're all gonna have to go multiple times. Does that make sense? But once again, you're going to have to start to play with, historically, when you're coaching or choreographing, those kids that are great tumblers also usually happen to be your really good jumpers, and then they're your really good stunters. So you're going to start to tire them out, and you're going to start to potentially mess with other sections of your score sheet. So work to your strengths. I'm not telling you how to choreograph. I just know working with those kids are always, I'm like, oh, cool. The most elite stunt group is also all the kids that can do all my tumbling passes. Oh, okay. Let's get really creative here. How are we going to make this work? So can it be a combination of elite skills or 7 of each skill? A combination of anything that falls into that box. In tumbling, the standing tumbling and running tumbling add together though, right? They don't add together. Your running tumbling can be accumulated, but your standing tumbling would have to be synchronized. I know that, and I named Krista. I know that sounds confusing. So I couldn't go, 3 kids did these 3 kids did standing back handsprings, and then 3 more kids did round off back handsprings. Those don't get added together. Standing and running don't get accumulated together. Running gets accumulated together. So you might consider, right, recycling your running tumbling for whatever category that you're trying to get into, basic, intermediate, advanced, or elite, and then have some other kids do some of that other tumbling for purposes of choreography or showmanship. So you have to have half plus 1 of standing and half plus 1 in running. The answer is yes, 50% plus 1, but remember, your running tumbling can be accumulated throughout the routine. Standing cannot.
Chris, I'm sorry, I'm so confused. If you have 17 girls and only 6 standing back handsprings, that means you don't score any points?
Nope, that's not accurate.
Okay.
We're just saying for you to beat, so if I have 17 kids and I have, you're saying 6 standing back handsprings?
6 standing back handsprings, yes.
6
So I don't meet the majority.
You don't meet the majority. So you're gonna fall into the high of intermediate, because you're doing a harder skill than what's intermediate, but you're not hitting the minimum for advanced.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Marissa, the new quantity sheets I don't think are up on the website yet, but they will be.
They are up now.
They are up now, everyone. Go get them, print them off. Any other questions? And I want to remind you that I'm a resource to you guys, so you can reach out to me. I've had coaches that are in the middle of choreo and I'm at breakfast and my phone rings. I'll answer it. I'll say, oh, just FaceTime me into your practice. Let's see what's happening today. I'll help you as much as I can. But here's a ton of resources that I tried to make it easier. So will we register through rank 1? I don't know.
I'll be sending more information about that. You do need to have your eligibility in rank 1, but as far as the entry process, we'll send that information later.
Any other questions? Because this was a great meeting. There's lots of people here exciting for the championship.
How do we get a hold of you if we have any other questions?
Chris, CHRIS, at expresscheer.com, or text me 214-334-9238. I'll type that in the chat also. If you text me, I don't know who you are, so give me like a heads up, like, hi, I'm Sarah with Covenant Christian. I'm from TAPS, like, because I'm like, oh, good, just random people are texting me right now. That also allows me to save your info. I know just from years of being a part of TAPS, I know there's been tons of frustration and like not clarity. And so that's what I'm hoping to create for everyone, is to take out some of that. There's always going to be questions because of the way the sport is designed, but I want there to be as much clarity as possible, and I want to be available. I don't want you waiting till the last second or it's the day before the championship and no one's, like, you haven't gotten any answers. So reach out to me. I will respond, I promise. If you email me and I have not responded to you within 24 hours and it's a normal weekday, like Monday through Friday, then that means I did not get your email. So it's what I ask most coaches to do. I say, if you shoot me an email, shoot me a text and say, I emailed you. And then that prompts me to go check my email. Or I might just respond back and go, hey, what do you need? And we'll just cover it right then instead of you having to drag it out. So I'm happy to do that. My family just loves when I respond to text and emails all day long, but they'll have to deal with it. So it's fine.
Okay, if y'all have any other questions, you can connect with Chris or send emails to info@taps.biz if it has nothing to do with actual stunting and things like this, but instead it has to do with the actual event and TAPS regulations. Be sure to get your NFHS rule book if you haven't already to make sure that you are following the legalities and safety rules. Okay, if there are no other questions, then we'll call it a day with this. And I thank you all for joining us today. And we are definitely looking forward to the championship event in December. Thank you all for coming.